Julian Lombardi had meticulously orchestrated every aspect of his life until a single moment disrupted his carefully constructed reality. What he witnessed that day rendered him utterly speechless, yet the reality underlying it, that would transform everything. Stick around until the conclusion to reveal the unexpected turn of events. Remember to show your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Julian Lombardi navigated the opulent hallways of his estate with a meticulousness that mirrored the very essence of his existence. His days unfolded with precision, his business empire flourished under his guidance, and his home operated seamlessly. Surprises were simply not an option. That was why, as he walked past the expansive glass windows that framed the garden, the sight before him caused him to halt abruptly. Leonardo, at the age of 12, was lost in the rhythm of dance, accompanied by others in his joyful expression. Accompanying him was Isabella, the house cook, a woman he had scarcely considered since her employment began 6 months prior. The scene was so surprising that Julian found himself blinking repeatedly, certain that his imagination was deceiving him. Yet there they were, gliding over the grass in flawless harmony. Leonardo's movements were tentative and wavering, yet imbued with a remarkable focus. He faltered several times, yet instead of showing annoyance, he chuckled, a sincere, untroubled laugh that Julian hadn't experienced in ages. Since the loss of his mother, Leonardo had grown distant, confined within the boundaries of his own thoughts. And now he stood there, a smile gracing his lips, all because of her. Isabella glided with a grace that Julian had never linked to someone in the kitchen. Each step and motion was executed with precision and intent, embodying the skill of someone well-versed in the craft of movement rather than engaging in whimsical spontaneity. She wasn't merely catering to a child's fancy. She was leading him, imparting wisdom. A chilling discomfort coursed through Julian's chest. He resented the idea that another person, particularly an ordinary employee, wielded such power over his son. As he continued to observe, his annoyance intensified. He was utterly devoid of patience for this. With a rigid stance, he ventured outdoors, his steps echoing crisply on the stone pathway. As he drew near, Isabella and Leonardo caught sight of him. The boy stood still, his previous happiness dissipating into unease. Isabella, however, maintained her poise, simply wiping her hands on her apron before standing tall to meet Julian's gaze. "What is happening here?" Julian's voice exuded a calm, measured quality. Leonardo bowed his head, yet Isabella held his gaze unwaveringly. "We were rehearsing, sir," she stated plainly. "What are we practicing, precisely?" "Your son expressed a desire to learn the art of dance." Julian shifted his focus to Leonardo. "Since when has this been the case?" The young lad paused, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "For some time now," he confessed softly. A sudden wave of guilt surged through Julian's chest. He had always overlooked it. He had never inquired, "Why didn't you share that with me?" Leonardo raised his shoulders in a subtle shrug. Yet before he could respond, Isabella interjected. "Due to the absence of a practice partner." Julian fixed her with a piercing gaze. Her tone carried a certain strength, resolute and unyielding. It vexed him. He asserted, "This isn't your responsibility." "No, it isn't," Isabella concurred. "So what's your reason for pursuing this?" With her arms crossed, her expression remained a mystery. "Is it because he requested it from me?" Julian faced his son once more. "Is that really the case?" Leonardo acknowledged with a nod. An oppressive stillness lingered in the air between them. Julian let out a slow breath, frustration gnawing at the corners of his calm. Despite the absence of any rational justification, he found himself deeply unsettled. There was an unsettling quality to the entire situation, as if an unseen layer obscured the truth, and that was simply intolerable. He turned his eyes once more towards Isabella. "I would like to have a conversation with you." Isolated. Leonardo gazed at them both, his brows furrowing in worry. Isabella, nonetheless, maintained her composure. "As you desire, my lord." Julian pivoted abruptly, retreating into the house without a glance back to see if she would come after him. As he entered, he took a moment to look back over his shoulder. Leonardo inclined closer to Isabella, murmuring softly. She replied softly, her face a mask of mystery, and the boy offered a subtle, secretive grin. A shiver coursed through Julian's body. There was an underlying truth to this, a hidden element that eluded his perception, and he was resolute in his quest to reveal it. Julian sat in his office, his fingers thoughtfully steepled beneath his chin, gazing intently at the glow of his computer screen. The details laid out before him were simultaneously mundane and disquieting. Isabella Ruiz, 29 years of age, was brought on as a cook at his estate 6 months prior. There were no offenses in the past, no unsettling experiences, nothing that caught attention. She presented herself as precisely what she appeared to be, a domestic worker fulfilling her duties and avoiding complications. Yet Julian couldn't dispel the notion that there was an underlying depth, something concealed just below the exterior. His intuition had always proven reliable in the past. In the realm of commerce, he had constructed a vast empire by discerning the truth behind facades. And now those very instincts were shouting that Isabella was more than merely a cook, a mere presence. He entered her name into a wider search, incorporating a term that had been lingering in his thoughts ever since he witnessed her performance: Isabella Ruiz ballerina. Initially, there was nothing to be found. However, after sifting through a sea of articles and unrelated results, he finally uncovered it. An article from 7 years past. Julian leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the headline. Young ballet prodigy disappears from the stage without explanation. His heart raced. He clicked the link, and as the page loaded, a picture of a much younger Isabella emerged on the screen. She stood on the grand stage, adorned in a flawless white ballet costume, her arms elevated in an exquisite display of form. Her expression radiated serenity and confidence, a stark contrast to the reserved cook who toiled in his kitchen. The piece highlighted an emerging talent in the ballet scene, a performer with an extraordinary ability. She had graced the stages of esteemed theaters, standing on the cusp of a global career. Then, without warning, and without any drama or public spectacle, she disappeared from the limelight. Without a word, without a trace, simply vanished. Julian reclined in his chair, releasing a sharp breath. What could compel an individual with such remarkable ability to forsake their potential? How did she find herself in this situation, preparing meals in his home? The inquiries accumulated, and he realized that mere contemplation of the screen would yield no responses. He longed to uncover the truth from her lips. With a sudden movement, he rose from his desk and confidently walked toward the kitchen. Isabella was present, as anticipated, diligently tending to the countertops. She looked up when he walked in, her face betraying nothing, yet remaining cautious. "Signor Lombardi," she greeted, her hands drying on a dish towel. "Do you require any assistance?" Julian was efficient with his time. He retrieved his phone and set it down on the counter, the piece about her illuminated on the display. "Would you mind clarifying this?" For the first time since their paths had crossed, he noticed a true spark of astonishment dance across her features. It was fleeting, yet it existed. She took her time to reply. Instead, she glanced at the screen, then returned her gaze to him. "So, you've been on the lookout for me?" Her voice carried a serene quality, yet an undercurrent hinted at deeper emotions. Something meticulous. Julian crossed his arms. "I prefer clarity in my living space." Isabella took a deep breath and set the dish towel aside. For a fleeting instant, he wondered if she would choose to remain silent. After a lengthy silence, she finally uttered her words. "I guess I should have seen this coming," she murmured softly. "You're not the kind of person who leaves questions lingering in the air." Julian remained silent. He simply bided his time. She glanced at the article once more, her fingers lightly grazing the edge of the counter. She confessed that she had been a dancer. "Once upon a time, you were more than merely a dancer," Julian amended. "You shone brightly." A wry smile graced her lips, a luminary extinguished before it had the chance to dazzle. Julian observed her intently. What prompted your departure? She paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. He could perceive the struggle in her gaze, the manner in which she deliberated on revealing the truth to him. At last, she let out a deep breath. I have lost it all. Her voice had softened, revealing a vulnerability he had never encountered in her before. He remained patient, allowing her the space to carry on. At the age of 22, dance consumed my every thought and action. It encompassed my entire world, my deepest concern, she expressed. I dedicated myself tirelessly, striving to surpass every boundary, driven by the conviction that I was destined for something more significant. She hesitated for a moment before continuing, and I wasn't by myself. Julian scowled. Who is it? My fiancé, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Is that you, Adrian? He also had a talent for dance. We had honed our skills side by side since our early years. We were meant to conquer the world side by side. An international tour was presented to us, a dream we had tirelessly pursued throughout our lives. There was an unsettling quality in her tone that caused Julian's stomach to knot. He was well aware of the direction this was heading. On the eve of our most significant performance, Adrian was struck by a vehicle. She pressed on, her gaze distant, adrift in the recollection. He passed away in an instant. Julian chose to stay quiet. The gravity of her words hung in the air, palpable and inescapable. Following that, I was unable to dance, she remarked. The sound of music felt like a haunting echo, leaving me with a sense of loss, as if a piece of my very essence had been torn from me. All that I had constructed my existence upon had vanished. And thus I vanished. Julian absorbed her words thoughtfully. He had anticipated a calamity, yet this was beyond his imagination. Not a sorrow so profound that it compelled her to forsake her entire sense of self. So you've taken up cooking? He inquired with a gentle demeanor. Isabella exhaled softly, a hint of amusement in her breath, yet the humor was absent. I sought an escape from the world of dance, yearning for something grounded, something secure. Julian let out a deep breath, his hand gliding over his face. What comes next? She locked eyes with him, her face a mask of mystery. I am now instructing your son. The words struck him with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. He understood that she wasn't issuing a challenge, yet it resonated within him as if it were. She had distanced herself from dance, yet for some inexplicable reason, she decided to confide in Leonardo about it. What is the reason? What prompted her to abandon her own principle for his son? You might have chosen to overlook it, Julian said, his voice measured. What's the reason to assist him? She paused for a moment, then replied, because he brings to mind my own experiences at that age. Julian tensed up. In what way? Isabella's demeanor became gentler. It's due to his lack of a smile, Signor Lombardi. The words struck with the force of a punch to the heart. Julian tightened his jaw, yet he couldn't refute the reality behind their words. Since the passing of his mother, his son had been withdrawing, immersing himself in literature and familiar patterns. He believed that Leonardo's stability and security were sufficient, yet Isabella had perceived something he had overlooked. He beams while he moves, she remarked, and I believe he simply required someone to hear him out. Julian took a deep breath, averting his gaze just a bit. He dedicated years to providing his son with every necessity, yet he may have overlooked the one thing that truly counted. After a brief pause, he let out a breath. So, what do you have in mind? Isabella inclined her head. Are you suggesting that I should make him dance as if that's the answer to all our problems? She gently shook her head. No, I simply wish for him to experience emotions once more. It's now in his hands. Julian lingered in that moment, taking in every detail. He had always taken great pride in his ability to maintain control, convinced that he was aware of every detail that unfolded within his home. And yet, in a curious twist of fate, he had overlooked the one thing that truly mattered, his own son's happiness. When he finally uttered a word, his voice was softer than normal. I prefer to keep my family matters private and free from outside influence. Isabella remained unperturbed. I find it disheartening to witness children who have lost the essence of childhood. A heavy stillness lingered in the air between them. Julian remained silent, for deep within his thoughts, he recognized the truth in her words. Leonardo faced his father in the opulent dining room. His hands tightened into small fists as he mustered the bravery to voice his thoughts. The chandeliers overhead illuminated the lengthy table with a soft radiance, yet the palpable tension in the atmosphere was undeniable. Julian Lombardi occupied the head of the table, his demeanor inscrutable as he observed his son fidgeting anxiously from one foot to the other. At last, Leonardo inhaled deeply and began to articulate his thoughts. I aspire to participate in a dance tournament. The ensuing silence was heavy, almost unbearable. Julian set his silverware aside with careful precision, his intense eyes fixed firmly on his son's expression. A dance tournament, he echoed, as though he were trying the phrase on for size. Leonardo acknowledged with a steady resolve. Absolutely, I'm ready to take on the challenge. Julian let out a breath, reclining in his chair. So, when did you come to this decision? Leonardo paused for just a moment. Some time back, I trained with Isabella, and she believes I'm prepared. Julian's gaze shifted, revealing an enigmatic emotion at the mere utterance of Isabella's name. Is that so? His tone was inscrutable, yet Leonardo remained steadfast. Indeed, I share that belief as well. Julian gazed at his son, really gazed, and perceived something that had previously eluded him. A blaze, an unwavering resolve that transcended simple youthful enthusiasm. Yet it failed to dispel the worries coiling within him. Understand that this is not a trivial matter, Leonardo. Competitions are not merely for enjoyment. They revolve around commitment, intensity, and anticipation. Leonardo aligned his posture. I understand, and I'm prepared for it. Julian fixed his gaze on him, lingering in silence. At last, he released a breath. All right, but if you choose to proceed, make sure you do it right. Commit fully. You dedicate yourself entirely to it. Leonardo's face brightened with a smile, one so broad and sincere that it momentarily took Julian by surprise. I appreciate you, Dad. Later that evening, Julian discovered Isabella in the kitchen, meticulously chopping vegetables with the finesse of someone accustomed to order and meticulousness. Her eyes lifted as he walked in, an instinctive awareness of his purpose washing over her. I knew he would ask me, Julian said, folding his arms. Isabella dried her hands on a towel, then turned to confront him. I had my suspicions. Do you believe he's prepared? Isabella inclined her head ever so slightly. He possesses the fervor, the determination, and the commitment that will develop over time. Julian let out a slow breath, his fingers rhythmically drumming on the counter. Should he proceed with this, he is likely to encounter setbacks and disapproval. He might struggle with that. Isabella observed him intently for a moment before she began to speak. Perhaps it's you who isn't quite prepared to manage it. Julian's jaw clenched, yet he refrained from voicing his dissent. Rather, he stated, if we are to proceed, we must do so correctly. This indicates that you will provide him with the appropriate training. There will be no gentle nudges. He requires a nudge. Isabella's lips curved ever so slightly. I had no intention of taking it easy on him. With the dawn of a new day, the training commenced in earnest. Julian observed from the sidelines as Isabella evolved from the gentle, quiet cook into a disciplined, determined mentor. Leonardo navigated the exercises with unwavering resolve. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as Isabella adjusted his posture, foot placements, and rhythm. Once more, she commanded, her tone resolute yet always gentle. You overlooked the rhythm. Leonardo wiped his brow and began anew. Julian stood in the doorway, observing the remarkable transformation in his son. Previously, he had remained subdued, reluctant, consistently trailing instead of taking charge. There was a tenacious quality about him, an unwavering determination to persist even when faced with challenges. Time slipped away, and as the session drew to a close, Leonardo crumpled to the floor, breathless and exhausted. Isabella offered him a bottle of water, and he accepted it with appreciation. "You performed admirably today," she remarked with understated grace. Leonardo flashed a grin in her direction. "Your words hold great significance for me." Julian observed in silence, a peculiar discomfort settling over him as he took in their exchange. This time it wasn't jealousy. It was an elusive sensation, a profound feeling that he struggled to identify. With the tournament on the horizon, the training sessions grew more rigorous. Leonardo exerted himself relentlessly, toiling late into the night, meticulously repeating his routines time and again. The once playful excitement of dancing had now transformed into a resolute drive. And Julian, despite his early doubts, felt an undeniable pull to each session, observing his son's transformation unfold before him. One evening, following a particularly exhausting session, Leonardo found himself at the dining table, his food largely untouched. Julian observed his son's leg rhythmically bouncing under the table, a clear sign of his barely contained nerves. "What thoughts are occupying your mind?" Julian inquired, his tone gentler than normal. Leonardo paused, contemplating his words before finally breaking the silence. "A new contender has entered the tournament dance floor. He goes by the name Santiago Beltran. He has achieved victory for 2 consecutive years." Julian acknowledged with a slow nod, while Leonardo nervously bit his lip. "He sent me a message, saying that I have no hope." Julian's grip on his glass grew firmer. "What are your thoughts on this?" Leonardo paused, then confessed, "I don't know." Julian inclined his body ever so slightly. "Hear me out, Leonardo. Individuals often attempt to undermine you when they perceive you as a challenge. If Santiago is making an effort to reach out to you, it indicates that he is already concerned." Leonardo's eyes grew wider, and his stance adjusted subtly. "Do you truly believe that?" Julian gave a slight nod. "I am certain of it." At last, after all this time, Leonardo's lips curled into a small yet sincere smile. "It seems I must demonstrate that he is mistaken." Julian breathed out, observing his son with a sense of deep appreciation. He had transformed from the boy who once sought refuge in the pages of books and the comfort of familiar routines. He was transforming into a new being, one imbued with greater strength. For the first time, Julian felt a true anticipation about discovering who he would become. The theater thrummed with vibrant energy. In the backstage area, dancers engaged in their warm-up routines, stretching their limbs, honing their footwork, and mentally gearing up for the performances ahead. The melody of music, murmurs of mentors, and the consistent cadence of anxious breaths enveloped the atmosphere. Leonardo stood amidst the group, carefully adjusting the straps on his dance shoes, his hands quivering ever so slightly. Julian observed from a short distance, his face a mask of ambiguity. He had always been the type of person who flourished in the realm of control, yet today, everything slipped through his fingers. His son was stepping onto that stage alone, and he felt a profound sense of helplessness regarding the outcome. Isabella positioned herself next to Leonardo, gently resting her hand on his shoulder. "Inhale deeply," she advised with a calm demeanor. Leonardo took a deep breath and nodded thoughtfully. "The effort has been put in. All that remains is to dance." Julian observed them from afar. Their connection flowed effortlessly, leaving him with a sense of being on the periphery. Isabella had bestowed upon Leonardo a gift he had long sought, a sense of confidence grounded in fervor rather than obligation. He tightened his jaw, resolutely banishing the thought from his mind. Now was not the moment for introspection. The voice of the announcer resonated through the speakers. "Now, let us invite Leonardo Lombardi to join us on stage." Leonardo gulped nervously. He glanced at Julian, seeking something. Perhaps reassurance, approval, or even a nod of permission. Julian offered a solitary nod. "Go!" he stated with conviction. Leonardo made his entrance onto the stage. The lights dazzled, the stillness of the crowd enveloping him like a heavy shroud. He assumed his place at the center, the rhythm of his heartbeat echoing in his ears. For a fleeting instant, uncertainty seeped in. What if he didn't succeed? What if he overlooked the steps? What if Santiago was indeed correct? At that moment, his gaze fell upon them. In the front row, his father sat, observing with a focus that Leonardo had never encountered before. His expression held no judgment, no demand for perfection. It conveyed a sense of steadiness, a touch of authenticity. Beside him, Isabella offered the faintest nod. The melody commenced. Leonardo released his grip. His body acted instinctively, bypassing any hesitation from his mind. The initial move was exact, the subsequent one flowed effortlessly. He surrendered to the rhythm, each motion seamlessly blending into the following one. The stage transformed into his universe, the weight dissipating effortlessly. He wasn't here to claim victory. He had come to dance. The concluding sequence proved to be the most challenging, a whirling leap that had posed a struggle for weeks. He steadied himself, propelled off the ground, and for an instant, it felt as though time had come to a standstill. He touched down, nimble and composed. The melody ceased, a moment of stillness. Suddenly, the audience burst into applause. Leonardo remained still, his breath deep and rhythmic, his skin glistening with perspiration. He surveyed the throng on the lookout. His father stood, applauding enthusiastically. Isabella, her eyes gleaming with pride. The results were revealed shortly thereafter. This year's competition has crowned Santiago Beltran as the winner. The crowd erupted in applause as Santiago advanced, his assured grin steadfast and unwavering. Leonardo took a deep breath, maintaining a calm facade. He had suffered a defeat, but before he could fully grasp the weight of his disappointment, the announcer pressed on. We are excited to introduce a unique award for artistic expression, aimed at honoring not only technical proficiency, but also the passion, connection, and heartfelt emotion behind the work. The recipient of this award is Leonardo Lombardi. The audience burst into cheers once more. Leonardo's eyes widened in astonishment as his name reverberated through the theater. He moved ahead, embracing the medal that was draped around his neck. It may not have been the top prize, but as he glanced at the crowd, the look on his father's face conveyed all the affirmation he sought. In the dressing room, as he slipped off his dance shoes, Santiago made his way over to him. Not too shabby, he remarked, spinning his trophy thoughtfully in his hands. There's a chance you could improve next year. Leonardo offered a subtle smile. Next year, victory is mine. Santiago wore a sly grin. We'll find out soon enough. Outside the theater, Julian and Isabella lingered, anticipation hanging in the air. As Leonardo stepped into view, Julian rested a hand on his shoulder. What are your thoughts and emotions? Leonardo paused, contemplating his response. Filled with pride, Julian acknowledged with a nod. Excellent. As they strolled toward the car, Leonardo cast a fleeting look at the medal cradled in his hands. It transcended the notions of victory and defeat. It was a journey of self-validation, a quest to affirm his rightful place on that stage, to demonstrate his own capabilities. Next time, he would surpass himself. Julian observed his son, noticing a fresh quality within him, a newfound strength. For the first time in ages, he sensed it as well. Beyond mere pride, there lies a profound essence. He had devoted countless years to the pursuit of control and perfection, losing sight of what genuinely held significance. The path taken, not just the result. Leonardo raised his gaze to meet his eyes. Is it possible for me to continue my training? Julian beamed, a smile that was both rare and authentic. Absolutely. We are merely at the beginning of our journey. Julian was taken aback by how one fleeting moment could alter the course of his life entirely. Yet now, everything has irrevocably changed. What actions would you have taken if you were in his situation? We invite you to express your opinions in the comments section. If this story resonated with you, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell for more captivating tales.